This week we are talking about myths and facts. So let's talk a little bit about the 5-second rule. Is it a myth or a fact? Well, first, let's talk about where did this start? It's hard to trace it back, but it's credited to Genghis Khan, who said that food could be on the floor for 5 hours and still be good. I don't know about that. The study that we're going to talk about today is by Professor Schaffner and his master's thesis student, Robin C. Miranda. For those of you that don't know, that is my first name. So they tested on 4 different surfaces. They tested on ceramic tile, wood, stainless steel, and carpet. And on each of those surfaces, they had 4 different types of food. They had bread, buttered bread, gummy bears, and cut watermelon. In these surfaces, the ceramic tile, the wood, the stainless steel, and the carpet were all treated with salmonella-like bacteria. And salmonella is a well-known bacteria that causes foodborne illnesses. So each of these pieces of food were dropped on each surface, and the researchers tested this at 4 different times: less than 1 second, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, and 300 seconds, which is 5 minutes, that Genghis Khan rule. This research found that the 5-second rule is actually somewhat true, and that the longer the food is left on the surface, the more bacteria it has. But no food escaped contamination completely. Even less than 1 second on the surface, the food had already got bacteria on it. Bacteria can contaminate instantaneously. And surprisingly, carpet had low amounts of bacteria on the food, lower than the stainless steel or the tile. But I would have thought the opposite. I'm way more likely to eat off a hardwood floor than a carpet floor. If my food drops on the carpet, I feel like there's a lot more hair and a lot more grime than I can see that's on a hardwood floor. But maybe that's just me. So the length of time that the food is on the surface, obviously it gets more bacteria. But just as important is the type of food. The more moisture there is, the more bacteria it's going to grab. Like watermelon had the most bacteria, and the gummy bears had the least. I mean, watermelons have a lot of water. The water is in its name. And from experience, I feel like that makes sense. I would never grab up gravy off the floor and eat it, but I might a piece of bread. Unless the butter side fell on the ground first. Then I probably wouldn't eat it. Man, isn't that the worst? So the 5-second rule, I guess it's somewhat true, in that the less time it's spent on the floor, the less bacteria it's probably going to have. But again, that also depends on how much moisture is in it. But also keep in mind that every piece of food that drops on the floor will get some bacteria. But going back to Genghis Khan, when he said that food was okay for 5 minutes on the floor, why would people believe this? Well, there's a couple different reasons. The first being that they may not correlate the eating food off the floor and later on being sick. Whether this was hours later or days later, they may not realize that that's what made them sick. So they often think, well, I've done this all my life and I've never gotten sick before. Whether they have gotten sick or not, that's what they think. And this is called confirmation bias. You'll specifically pay more attention to the evidence and the facts that support your own ideas. So if you don't think that's going to make you sick, you're not going to look at the facts and that evidence, and you're not going to correlate that the food on the floor made you sick. And this confirmation bias is actually a big problem in the research field. Another reason people might believe this is because people tend to believe that they're more cleaner than others, or that their homes are more clean than public places. And actually that's probably not true, because those public places are cleaned a lot more regularly than you clean your home. And yes, it has a lot more traffic, so I would say neither are safe. So this particular article goes even more in depth, and it even talks about the differences between men and women, who are more likely to eat off the floor and who are more likely to follow the rule. And will you be surprised? You can check out that article using the link down below. And yes, this was a New York Times article. Obviously, they thought this was a really important topic. So, what do you think? Is it worth the risk? Do you follow this rule? Let us know down in the comments below. Either leave follow always, follow sometimes, or follow never. And let us know if you follow this rule. And after seeing this, are you going to continue following this rule? I think we can agree that this rule depends on where you are, what type of food it is, and how bad you really want that food. If you are going to eat off the floor, just make sure you watch out for any symptoms of foodborne illnesses. And I will hopefully see you guys tomorrow. Bye!